Я еще это буду резать. Okay, let's go. So, no, wait. It's from the beginning. From here. I will crop this anyway.
Okay.
So, now from the beginning. So, hello, folks. Wartex development team here. This is the video we're basically voicing over because it was originally in Russian, and now we're gonna explain everything what happened in here in English, just the main things. Basically, in this video, together with this guy on the right and me on the left, we introduced the game, how the game worked, and the basic rules. And also, this video features 2 games with 2 constructed decks, right? So now, Valentin, you can basically start explaining about the main features of the board.
So yes, main features are that the game is similar to Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering in a sense that both players play with the deck of cards, 40 unlike Magic, but the main difference is that creatures and things go onto the board, onto those hexagons that you see on the video. The objective of players is to kill opponent by dealing 20 damage to him. So right now in video you see that the players start shuffling their decks. Starting hand size is 6 cards, and players draw 1 card each turn. Then the mulliganing happens in a similar way as in Hearthstone. You pick any number of cards from your hand, set them aside, draw that many cards, and then shuffle the cards that you set aside into your deck. Afterwards, you draw 1 card per turn. So, what happens in the video now?
We're just explaining how the board works, where you put your platforms, which are not essentially lands. So here, in this video, they're explaining in the way that your lands are your platforms, essentially, but actually now the lands are lands, like in Magic, but platforms are the platforms that you put on the board into those cells, and then you put your stuff on those cells, but you start in the middle, and then you try to, well, step by step, get to your opponent and attack him with your creatures, and get to your opponent with your creatures, with your units, and sometimes even hit him with your structures. Yeah, and then you can use these hexagons and these platforms to also defend yourself, so basically surround yourself with defensive units as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and you play platforms by platform. The lands, like in Magic in this game, will be somewhere outside the field, outside this board, just to represent the energy, well, which is like mana, and the influence, which are kind of like colors. Okay.
Sorry to disrupt you. So one main feature of our game is that there are no land cards in the deck. You use cards from your hand and deploy them to create lands. So in essence, you do not have to draw specific lands from your deck to enable playing resources like in Magic. You just use cards that are already in your deck, like spells, so that they will give you that mana to play spells. If people are familiar with the World of Warcraft trading card game, then the similar rules apply here.
Right. Basically, we have not only sci-fi, but sort of fantasy setting as well. So it's kind of like somewhere in between Warhammer 40,000 and the normal Warhammer.
Okay, they started playing.
Yeah, they started playing. So we start from the center in one of those 2 central hexagons. So we put a platform. Yeah.
Yeah, the first platform is played on the center, and every other turn, the platforms lands can be played adjacent to either your platform, your player, or a creature that is standing on a platform. So basically, you try to get closer to your opponent or block your opponent with lands. But if opponent steps onto your land, he can play another land next to it. And there is also a limitation of playing one land per turn, with a notable exception if there are cards that allow you to play more than one land per turn. For example, balance token. Arne, you can explain a bit more in detail about that.
Before we go on to that, we should say that here they're playing with colored platforms. Now, platforms don't actually have color, they're all colorless, but instead you have the lands, like in Magic, which do have color and actually contribute to influence for certain color, and to actually distinguish which platforms are whose, we will have two-sided platform tokens, where with one side it's one player, with another side it's another player, but the platforms won't have color, and it doesn't matter where you put your units, as long as it's your own platforms. But once they're on your units, they can move to opponents' platforms. Right, and with the balance token, well, it's not actually a token, it's a button. It's like a button. It's not actually a spell. It's a coin.
Ability,
it's a coin.
It's a coin. Its ability players have. So the second player, to balance his game, gets balance token, which means that he can either use it to either draw a card or play an extra turn. But after
let's switch to the shield and R&D bonuses. So basically, the short version I can explain is that if you put a creature next to opponent's shield and it survives, so on your next at the start of your next turn, if it's there, you get to deal them 3 damage. If it's your creature on your shield, you get to gain life. With the R&D, it's in such a way that if you have your own creature there, then you get to draw an extra card per turn. If you have your creature next to your opponent's R&D zone, signified here by these colors, then
opponent discards a card.
Yeah, opponent discards a card. All of that happens at the upkeep, so your unit, well, your creature will have to survive until your next turn. Otherwise, it won't really be very, very balanced, and we want this extra sweet mechanic to be balanced right from the beginning.
Yeah, it's it has to opponent has to have time to react. That's why it's done at the beginning of turn.
Yeah, and the balance token is more like a coin in Hearthstone. And it's just our way to balance second player. We both players draw for the first turn, and we have a poker mulligan like in Hearthstone, but it's only one mulligan, so you can't actually do it more than once. So you just change parts of your hand only once, but you can choose any number of cards. But because we don't have actual lands, so you don't get color screwed or mana flooded all that much or something like this.
There is actually a possibility of getting color screwed if you built your deck wrongly and you have only one card of one color and all the other cards of another color. Then you cannot play the first card because
So here you see the balance force or the balance token. Basically, this is what it looks like, but it's not actually a spell. It's more like a coin or a button. It's just this special totem, let's say, that you get if you start second, and then it can actually change hands depending how they use it and when they use it. So when you use it, you give it to your opponent. Basically, this way you get an extra element of tactics or strategy or whatever. In which way you can try to get ahead in that particular turn by basically giving your opponent a chance to get ahead later in their turns. So it's a perfect tempo, tempo totem.
Yeah, it's So okay, the players have finally finished mulliganing, and we can look how the game
Yeah.
happens. So
Yes.
the first player played a land, and got for playing a land you get one energy. On the video it's denoted by dice, but you will have the cards you play as
Yes.
lands are in front of you, like
Basic.
lands in Magic.
Yes. Basically, we were not happy when we look at this. We were not happy to see a dice to represent energy and also colors. So what we decided is that instead of those cards from your hand to be put on the bottom of your deck when you make those platforms, which are separate tokens, instead of that you put those hand cards into a separate pile, which are like lands and magic. So this way you don't need any extra dice, and there's no confusion about the colors or the amount of energy you get every turn and the amount of energy you spend on certain separate things every turn when you cast things.
Yes. So now, second player on the right, played land. He got one energy, and now he played his creature. Because he has one green land, it means he can play the creature, which requires one green influence. He also spends one mana for it. This creature is 1/1, which means it deals one damage when it attacks or is attacked, and it can take one damage, after which it goes to the graveyard. It also has two abilities: Last Will, which happens when it dies, and this Last Will ability creates another 1/1 creature in its place. Second
Yes.
ability is Explore, which happens when that card is used as a land. So the player on the right could have used that creature as a land, paid the energy he got from it, and got 1/1 creature on that land as well. And it's also notable that creatures come into play exhausted, or, as more familiar for Magic the Gathering players, tapped, which is so there is no summoning sickness per se. It's just that creatures come into play tapped, so they cannot move or attack. They come into turn, because both moving and attacking is action that requires to exhaust or tap a creature.
Yeah. But like in Magic, also here, if you have sort of artifacts, in our case structures, they don't come tapped unless otherwise specified.
Yes, the come into play tapped is only text on the creature's structures, and other card types do not have that ability or detriment. So okay, player on the left played his second land, so he got second energy. These lands produce, so players get as much energy during each turn as they have lands. So player on the left has one red influence, one blue influence, and two energy. So for two energy, or was it one energy? It's one energy. He plays Sparkbolt, which deals 2 damage to target unit. Unit means that it can target either creature or a structure. Sparkbolt also requires one blue influence, which he has, and one energy to play. Plus, it also has explorability, which player on the left could have used if he played it as a land, but he did not. So it only killed the creature. As the creature died, the Last Will triggered and created 1/1 token onto the field, on the place where that creature died.
Right, now refine energy, basically just to ramp
Yes.
a little.
Yeah, so this card is interesting in a way that it draws you a card with Explore, and then you play it as a land, which is called Deploy, and then the card itself, the Refine Energy, becomes a land. So for 3 mana and with 2 white influence, this card allows to get 2 additional lands and 2 additional energy per turn. But player on the right cannot play it because it requires 2 white influence to actually play.
Yeah, so he
So
actually just
so
put it as a platform.
yes.
So he
So
didn't cast it.
yes, so he did not cast it. He used it as a land, which means the explorability triggered, and he could change. And explorability says that he can change the land of this color of this land into any other color,
Yeah, he
but
made
he
a white.
decided
Yeah,
not to do so.
yeah, he made it as a white land, but it could have been like any land.
Yes,
Well, any platform. Well, no,
yes,
any land actually, because
land of
platforms.
any color. Yes,
Yeah, because these platforms in our latest patch, let's say, do not have lands themselves. And then we should also explain the. So yeah, here he cast a cartographer for 2 energy, so he gets to draw a card with Explore. It's a big creature with Explore, and he gets to use it as a land, which allows him to also make another platform. So on one hand, land and platform might be a little bit confusing, but once you get to the bottom of it, it makes everything more simple and more smooth and faster. Then you know where everything is and how much of everything you have. And also because we didn't like the fact that you actually spend cards from your hand to make these platforms in play, to actually move across the board. That's why you actually every turn have this special rule. Instead of drawing a card from the top of your deck for the turn, you can bounce one of those lands, not platforms, to your hand. So this way, with cards like Refined Energy, you get extra strategy or extra feature that those cards that you used to deploy in the early stages of the game, then you can later reuse as spells or creatures later in the game.
yes, but it is notable that since you bounce the card back from your land zone, it means that that card is not giving you energy. So if you use that option, you will have 1 energy per turn less than if you did not use it.
Yeah, it's basically the same consequences as if you bounced a land back to your hand in Magic.
Yes. So now there is another card and the ability that might not be obvious. So 1 mana 2/1 Necrodog. Last will, so when it dies, scavenge 1 to draw another target creature from your grave. Scavenge 1 works as an additional cost, so it means remove X cards from your graveyard to get that additional effect. In this case, he needed to remove or exile, in Magic terms, 1 card from his graveyard to return another creature back to hand. Now, a player on the left played a ritual that for 2 mana gave him 3 energy, so he accelerated himself and played a 5-drop on what was it? Turn 3 or 4? It was turn 3. Turn 3.
Yeah.
So transmute is another effect that is happens on blue cards. It works similar to cycling in Magic. So you discard that card from your hand, pay the cost, and get the effect, which is draw 2 cards on that card, but on other cards it's either 1. And this one doubled all the cycling effects from cycling. Now another card from player on the right. Void Prison works for people familiar with Magic the Gathering. It's like Oblivion Ring. It takes a creature into the prison, so exiles until this leaves the field. The card itself is a structure, which is new. They come into play untapped since they do not have the rules associated with creatures. And it's notable that structures also have attack and life, which means that they can be attacked, killed, but when they are attacked, they also strike back. But structures cannot attack themselves unless otherwise specified.
Right. More platforms deployed. Well.
Yeah, he used balance token to get 2 lands per turn, and he deployed 2 of his creatures as platforms.
Yeah, basically you deploy lands and you deploy platforms, but they have so the platforms you use just to move across the board, and everything else is connected to the lands you have. So the energy that you get each turn and the influence or colors that you have each turn. Platforms are here just to move on the board.
Yeah, so we have an interesting thing, a lot of things going on with this new creature. First of all, it is fast, which means that unlike other cards, other cards can be played only on your turn and when there is nothing on the stack, so when nothing is being played. Fast cards, so fast creatures, fast structures, can be played at any time and go onto the top of the stack. Again, people familiar with Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, World of Warcraft know the same type of rules apply. Also, this refers to card text says that mutants have +1/+1. This refers to subtype, which is written onto the middle on the bottom of the card. Each card has some subtype. Most of the green creatures have subtype mutant or Crow. In this case, this creature gives all mutants +1/+1.
Those are major subtypes right now in green.
Yes.
Okay, if I just break the prison here, because I'm the player on the left, in this recording, I get to free up this 3/6 that won't be able to attack right away because it will still have Summon and Sickness. But because it re-entered the play, actually, it was exiled. But then I get to do Mambo Jumbo with the transmute effects on all the cards like this one. So once I free up my guy with cards like this, I will get to draw extra cards, get more damage, or get more energy, things like this.
Yes.
So for just for 1 energy, I dealt 3 damage exactly to target structure, killed the prison, freed up my 5-drop, and now I'm using the Balance Force apparently for an extra land drop, I suppose. Not sure. I have 2 energy left. It seems.
Yeah, so you used it. Yeah, you used it to get the land drop and you used this card with Explore, which gives you a card if you damage. So yeah, Explore abilities somehow require you to pay more for effect. This gives you an effect if you have fulfilled the condition. In this case, this gives you a card if you dealt damage with an event. As he killed opponent's structure with Essence Strike earlier this turn, the Explore ability triggers and gives him a card.
Right, now, what is it? Yeah, using this guy as a land, I suppose, yeah. Putting it as a land to make a platform on board.
Yes, so you get to opponent's shield zone and can deal damage to his face. Basically, creatures can attack opponents directly if they are next to opponent, but if they're in opponent's shield zone, they can deal also damage to him at the beginning of turn, which means if a creature has 1 or 2 attack, it would deal more damage to opponent if it's opponent's shield zone rather than if it's attacking him directly. So red has a characteristic that a lot of its cards either discard cards from hand or from deck. They are like warlocks in the Hearthstone game where they have self-damaging tendencies. In this case, the creature deals 3 damage to unit for discarding a card. Debut ability means that this happens when creature comes into play.
Right, I killed the Mutant Lord, so now I'm not taking a whole lot of damage here. My opponent is still at 20 actually, and I'm at 15 because he beat me with some of those small guys earlier. Now he's gonna continue that probably, moving his stuff around closer to me, surrounding my orb, technically my spaceship, let's say. Okay, that's 1, 2, 4 more damage. I go down to 11. Right. Basically, with that keeper freed up from the prison that turn, get to do a whole lot more stuff on my turn. See how now they untap. Um, I dealt him damage from the shield, so
Yes,
he went down
he's
to
at 17.
Yeah. Right, using the force again to draw an extra card just to dig for more action, especially something with transmute since I have this guy here. It's a 3/6, so it's gonna be slowly clearing everything around my orb.
One notable difference from Magic the Gathering, which we haven't noted, is that the damage on the creatures stays even after the turn is over.
And on
This
the
is the first,
structures.
yes, on the structures as well. This is the first time it became relevant, but yes. So there are effects that can remove it, gain life or otherwise, but by itself it does not go away unless creature is killed.
And you can actually attack creatures with your creatures.
Yes.
So in that regard, it's like Hearthstone or Feria.
Okay, now we played a structure that can also attack. Structures do not can have activation abilities, which means that you can exhaust or tap this structure to get the effect. Since the structures do not come into play tapped, players can do that immediately. And in this case, the structure attacks adjacent unit or player, and since it was played next to opponent, it attacked him directly for 3 more damage.
Okay, balance force shifts once again. So it really does bring a very interesting dynamic to the game. So you have to decide whether you want to use it now or not. But yeah, this way you just get more tempo by actually giving potential advantage to your opponent as well.
Yes. General rule of thumb: if you think you're ahead, you should not be using balance force token. But yes, if the game is even, then it will probably be shifting a lot.
The whale, it's a fast creature, so it's a big instant. No,
it's
not
a structure.
Creature, it's a structure. It's a instant structure, which can attack creatures.
Yes, but you actually have to sacrifice a creature for it to be able to attack. Yes. And when this whale kills a creature, a unit, it gets to draw a mutant from your deck. So what this means when it draws a mutant is that player drawing that mutant will reveal cards from top of this deck until he reveals a mutant and puts into his hand. So this is like cascaded magic, and it reduces the amount of shuffling.
And with the Necrodoc, and he sacrificed Necrodoc and scavenged it.
Yes.
When it died, so use the scavenge, so he gets to return back to his hand the Mutant Lord, so to speak, to pump again his team.
Oh, and one thing to note, activation abilities do not require an empty stack. So, like tap abilities in Magic the Gathering, they can be used even an opponent's turn or when something is on the stack. So he could have done that in response to any of opponent's actions as well.
Yeah. So, okay, again, shifting the balance force, drawing extra cards, couple interesting things, but I really have to order it well. So moving my guy backwards to kick another creature. Yeah, taking actually shouldn't be like 2 damage. So shouldn't the keeper have
There is a lot.
Yeah. So how much damage did it have? I know it had only 1, right?
Yes, so now it's 3.
Yeah.
Now it's correct.
So now it has like 3 life points left.
It should be noted that player on the left is not worried about the big whale in the middle because structures by themselves cannot move. Right. So whale cannot move next to his structure to kill it, but nor can his structure escape anywhere.
Yep. They're stuck where they are unless you cast some spells. Yeah.
Yeah. there are effects that move
Yeah.
creatures and structures.
Okay, so here is the reactor that I use as a land to cast this 4 attack creature.
And it discards 3 cards of your decks and draws a structure from your graveyard.
Yeah.
So this type of wording means he can actually select which structure to return.
Okay.
And I think we
I
have.
discarded one more card, I think.
No, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was probably older version
Yes.
on the text card because it was 4 in the beginning, but 4
now
was
it's
too
free.
much.
Yes. Yeah, now it's free. Yeah, 4 gives too much of an advantage with all those discard and so forth synergies. Okay,
Yeah, red decks have like blue has transmute, which is similar to cycling. Then green has scavenge, which is a mix between kicker and delve. So this red has flashback abilities, which mean that the cards can be played from the graveyard once before being exiled or removed from the game.
Right, so I'm trying to push for extra damage. Yeah, so it was probably the older version that milled for 4. He's trying to defend himself somehow.
Which is kind of problematic because of his land positioning, since he cannot play any lands. He could play land to the right of his orb, but even that would make him really hard to defend from your creatures.
So now he's attacking for 3 damage with the Lord, so putting me down to 2, putting extra creatures. He's not per se dead right here because I have only 7 on board.
Yes.
But look
you're
at what's going to happen.
You're blue-red, which means you have burn.
It's actually going to be more hilarious than that.
What you're drawing?
So, yeah, he's just showing that. What is it? Is he casting this guy? I don't think so. Yeah, I think he was just showing it that he can't really cast it, so he might as well make it as a land, as a platform on board.
Yeah, but because it has explorability, which forces you to discard a card if you have more cards than him.
Yeah. I discarded some irrelevant structure, technically. Yeah, it wasn't the stuff. So, then... Oh yeah, I get to deal him, what is it, extra free or something? From the shield? Did we miss that?
Yeah, we did not mention... Actually, no, you did not get... because you're not on his shield zone.
No, I'm not on the shield zone, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm just cycling a bunch. So I get to draw 2 events thanks to this guy.
Yeah, it is notable that next turn you guaranteed die from, since there is a creature on your shield zone.
Yeah, so I have to kill now.
Yes, so you use transmute ability, which meant you draw an event. But because there is a card that doubles transmute effects, you draw 2 events. So he reveals cards until he reveals 2 events.
Here's one that doesn't exactly win me the game, and here's the one that wins me the game. Because of the wording that you chose for it the last time, I suppose it's still the same. Okay, this doesn't really matter, but I use it to draw more events. Because I didn't exactly read first what it does.
I don't remember the art of the cards, so I have to wait until it's shown in the video.
I drew some useless event, technically. I'm still 1 point short because I didn't realize that Overclock actually does it here.
Yes, of course it does. If it was Overclock, yes. So the card basically refreshes, or in Magic terms, untaps a structure and deals 1 damage to it at the end of turn.
Yeah.
The wording was intentional because most of red structures have low health, so this was to allow them to use that effect once and then die at the end of turn.
Exactly. So, because I read the damage part and the untapping, but not when that damage happens, so it was right enough for me to actually finish him off in this game, which was kind of close because these were very mixed up decks, which you would typically have when you play drafts or sealed events and
Yes.
play with seal decks. So these had pretty much like one or two of all kinds of things. So here we're just discussing like how it goes. It's very grindy, very tactical. It's very edgy, and I think if you have two decent decks, especially in limited, they're usually very close, very close.
Yes,
So
I remember when we were testing, we had a lot of close games and a lot of grinding, depending on the decks. But it has to be noted that both of you right now, since one of the players was not as familiar with the game, but either way, you were both really aggressive and basically abandoned all defense. So it was simple. It was the game ended up in a race who can kill faster. Neither of you placed lands in a defensive manner, which allowed both players to go for the face and deal a lot of damage. So it was more of the question of who draws more aggressively, and then that player would win. If you both would have chosen different strategies, the game would have played really differently. So let's just say that unlike Hearthstone, this game has a lot more going on with how you place your lands and what strategy you choose than simply what cards you draw. Especially since every turn you have to select which cards you are using as lands. You can, for example, keep more expensive cards and throw cheaper cards on as lands to have better end game, or but then you have to survive to that end game. Or you could throw all your expensive cards and card advantage away and simply try to play something on the board quickly.
alright, there will be one more game as far as I remember. We shall see. Or not. Maybe
How
not.
long? Yeah.
Ah, no, that's it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So that's the very, very basics. We didn't really dive into all the controlling or comboish or defensive things. But yeah, we will show you that in another video.
Yes. Thank you for watching.